Welcome on Frenchly, a division of French Morning Media Group. I'm Frankie Perez, and I'm delighted to be your host today. If you're watching this, it indicates that you are either connected to Frenchly or that someone who had the wonderful idea to think, be interested in what we have to offer. We are the leading online media that caters to Americans who are simply in love with France and all that it has to offer. It's art, culture, food, wine, history, landmarks, fashion, style, language, and accent. Therefore, we believe that learning from experts about the keys to successfully buy a piece of real estate in Paris will be a great opportunity. Madame et Monsieur, we will be covering today the following topics: the Parisian real estate market in 2023, price trends, future projections, the 5 best neighborhoods to invest, how to transfer money internationally with the best possible exchange rate, and also taxes, the LMNP regime, tax obligation, fonciere, habitation, IFI, and double taxation. Allow me to introduce you to the panel we have assembled for this purpose. Mahsa Sabahi from Investissement Locatif of the Parisian real estate market in 2023. We will learn from Kelly.cutchin at MoneyCorp how we transfer money internationally with the best possible exchange rate. And finally, Benjamin.pik, who is a dual French and American CPA. He will tell us more about taxes, different regimes and obligation, and double taxation. Each and every one of you will be able to ask questions during that webinar. I will be honored to ask this question after the presentations. Let's start. If you guys are ready with you, Mahsa, if you please, could you give us insights about the Parisian real estate market?
Yes, of course, with pleasure. Hi, everybody. So I'm Mahsa. I'm working in the company investissement.locatif.com. And today we're here talking about the market of Paris, who is growing and where the price are not going down in the small apartment, but in the big area, we can see that, and we can negotiate more than ever, because to invest here and to purchase loan, it's harder for people who live in France, but it's easier for people who live in America this year. So we can talk about it, and I can show you some price in Paris. So if you let me just 1 second here to show you.
We are traveling with you, Mahsa, directly from the United States. We are transporting you guys in the heart of Paris.
Yes, exactly. Voila. So here we are at Paris. And that's how we work, the 5 key figures. We are in this market since 20 years. We made 500 operations per year, and we've got more than 200 employees. That's about us. And the founders, Manuel Ravier and Michael Zonta. Our method, we found a discounted property for you. We make the plan, the optimizations also. We follow up the renovation work if there are some renovation to do for you. We can furnish and decorate also if you want it. And we can rental and manage if you want to rent it after. But it's not an obligation, but a lot of people we work with, they put a rent inside, and then they're gonna live inside for the pied-à-terre, but not always just buying and let it be alone with nobody inside. So we rethink, we renovate, and we rent if you want before you come here. And we can find every type of apartment, studio, 1 bedroom, big apartment, however you want. And about Paris, and only Paris, the best district and the best area and the most expensive in Paris, we've got this one, so 16, 7, 6, 4, and 3. And the other area are the district that we can negotiate and have bigger apartment because the price per meter are a little bit less, like 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, or most of the other district, 18, 19, and 20, district of Paris. And in this area, you don't have to go everywhere because when you're closer to Paris, like here, it's a little bit more expensive. But if you go a little bit there, here in the 18 or here is, sorry, whoa. Sorry. It's a little less expensive, but it's not right now the best area to go. Here. I don't know if it's clear what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's very clear. We're not asking you what is not the best area. Is it a question of safety, or you don't want to get into that?
No, it's about safety and the type of neighborhood that you can have. It's just about that. But near this district, it's okay. It's really when you go further there. Just in the 18, 19, and 20. Other district, it's okay now. But they're the type of district also who can change, because 10 years ago, this district were nobody lives inside. But for example, my two boss, Michael live in the 18, but in the good area in the 18, and Manuel live in the 20, but in the good area of the 20 also. Okay. And then the bank leverage for you also, when I touch, everything's go, sorry.
It's very sensitive, like the subject might be sensitive,
yes.
But we get the thing. So we see here that the down payments are different from a French resident to a non-French resident, right?
Exactly. And so for you, for non-residents and more for American people, it's about 30% down payment, and they don't gonna give you the loan for the works that you can do it also inside. So the down payment is not about 30%. It's gonna be about the renovation work also.
What do you mean? It's 30% of the whole amount, including the renovation?
No, not including. It depends on the bank. Some banks say, okay, for the renovation works, the decoration, our fees and the purchase. But some banks gonna say, no, just the purchase and the fees and the flat only. That's all. It depends. But the longer loan your term is better. The benefit from lower monthly payment, preserve your debt capacity, and deferred payment also if you have works only. If you don't have works, it's not going to be possible. Okay. And there's some picture of how it could be the apartment, but it depends of what you like and what you want, because we've got architect who gonna work for you, so you can ask them what type of apartment you want, decoration you want, and we can make everything you need or want. Voila. Again, sorry. Here, the price in Paris, the made equators from 2006 to now 2020. Uh-oh, I did it again. Here. You can see here how the price in Paris go upper. And now we stopped in 2020, because in 2022 and 23, it depends on the district, but it can be like more than 10,000. And it depends on the district also. For this part, the taxation, I'm gonna let Benjamin to talk more about it. And And the exchange also, I'm going to let the exchange rates Kelly talk more about it. It's her part. And that's a picture before and after what we can do. And if you want to contact us, you can take here the number. Voila.
Thank you very much. Just a quick question, if you may, at this point, even if we'll be having questions at the end, but just to bounce on what you just said, you mentioned the deposit between French resident and French non-resident. How does it work in terms of mortgage and guarantees? Do they ask for the income, for the tax returns if you're not a French resident?
They only ask you, yes, the down payment, about 30%, and to have a contract like a CDI in France. So
a long-term work contract. Okay.
Yes, you have to. You need it. It's an obligation. If you don't have, they don't really like. And if you've got, you've got an apartment or something in France, they like more also. But you don't need. You need just to have the 30% and to have a long-term contract. It's the most important.
That could be a very nice transition if Benjamin wants to add something. Thank you, Benjamin, for being with us. You're going to talk about taxation, and it's very rare to have a CPA that is a US CPA and a French CPA at the same time. It's a real opportunity to have you with us at this webinar. And we can see here on your profile that you've been involved with the American expat community in France for many, many years. Could you tell us a few words about your company, about your profile, and also maybe that could be the starting point of what is necessary if you want to add something for a non-resident investing in France?
Thank you, Frankie, for this introduction. And hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be with you tonight. Just maybe a few words about my firms. I'm a French and a US CPA. We're helping American citizens or US persons to invest in France from a tax perspective and for all the selling down of a company or any tax issue. So we know the tax regime between France and the US. And my point tonight, maybe, I don't want to go too into details into tax because I know it's boring. And I want to keep you guys awake until the end of the presentation. So my point is just to reassure you on the fact that you can invest in France. I know France has a bad reputation of being aggressive tax countries. I will just explain you why it's not the case and why there is a lot of tax regime that can help you to mitigate the tax situation in France. So I will just go through the basics and just to give you some headlights on the different opportunity you might have in France from an investment in real estate. So I will just start with maybe to the liability to the French income tax. So if you're non-resident in France, if you're not living in France we're just going to explain you what is be a French resident or not. You're just liable to a French source of income. So let's say if you're planning to invest in France on a property and you have rental income in France, but you're not living in France, you only need to report in France your real estate, your rental income. You don't need to report other source of income you might have in the US or outside the world. If you're a French resident, I will again explain what it means to be a French resident. You will need to report in France your worldwide income, but don't worry, there is a tax treaty between France and the US and with other countries as well, in order to help you to not pay double tax. So in any case, you won't pay double tax on the same source of income. Tonight we're going to speak about the rental income, but it's true for most of the type of income you might have. There is no double taxation in France. So even if France is more aggressive on the tax rate, you're going to see that you're not going to pay double tax. If you're paying tax in the US, you're paying tax in the US, and that's it. So just maybe a basic about the residency status. If you're not sure of your residency status, there is 3 reasons that make you a French resident. If you consider yourself your main home in France, if you carry on a professional activity in France, or if you have a center of economic interest in France. If you're not sure, there is the rules of the 183 days. You have the same rules in the US, by the way. If you're spending more than 183 days in France, there is high chance that you will consider as a French resident. even if you spend less than 183 days in France, but your center of interest are in France, you might be considered as a French resident as well. If not, you're not a French resident. Again, if you're not a French resident, you will only need to report to the French tax authority your income generated in France. As a US person, you might know that you need to report in the US your worldwide income. So if you have some rental income in France and you pay tax on the French side on that, you still need to report that on the US side because the US person needs to report the worldwide income. I think, Frankie, correct me, but if I'm wrong, but there is only 2 countries in the world where you need to report your worldwide income. I think it's the US and Ethiopia or something like that. But don't worry, again, there is a tax treaty to avoid double taxation. So if you pay tax in France, you won't pay tax in the US on that source of income. So as I was saying, the tax treaty between France and the US is just amazing. So for each type of income, we're going to assess where the income is going to be taxed. Tonight, we're focusing on the rental income. So basically on the rental income, it's the Article 6 of the treaty. It's going to be taxed on the country where the property is located. So if you have some investments in Paris and you have rental income in Paris, you tax in Paris, and you will report this rental income on the tax returns with a tax credit associated to that, not paying double tax. So again, the focus of my point is really to focus on the fact that there is no double tax. On what you paid in France will be credited in the US. What you paid in the US will be credited in France. I'm going to now talk about few other topics that are important to know. The first important topic is the wealth tax. So if you're a non-resident in France, which means not living in France, you only assess on the wealth tax on your property located in France. It's basically a tax if you own above 1.3 million of real estate, net real estate, which means you need to get out all your mortgage you have on your property. Let's say you buy a property of 2 million euros, but you have 1 million euros of loans on this property, you won't pay the wealth tax. The wealth tax is only on the net value above 1.3 million euros. So I just put the rate here on my slide. You can see from 0 to 800 is 0, from 800 to 1.3 it's 0.5, and so on until up to 10 million is 1.5%. If you're a French resident, it's different. So first, you have 5 years of gift, let's say. If you move to France for the first 5 years, you're not going to pay the wealth tax. And after 5 years, they're going to assess your wealth tax on your worldwide income, on your worldwide real estate, sorry. So if you have apartments in Paris and apartments in New York, they're going to take both of your real estates to assess this wealth tax. Few other tax that's important to know. First is the tax fonciere. So tax fonciere is basically payable by any owner of a French property. Guys, don't need to worry. The amount is never big. I mean, it's not like the property tax in the US, where like in Florida, you have a higher property tax. In France, it's not as expensive as in the US. And there is also the tax d'habitation, which is need to be paid by the occupier of the apartment. So if you rent a property, the people who live in your apartment who need to pay it on January 1st. But this tax d'habitation is abolished in January 1st, 2023, and it's only on your first residence. So if you have many residents in France, it's only on the first residence when you're not going to pay this tax. Just put here a few tax rates on with a new bracket for starting January 2023. So you're going to see from 10,000 euros, you're basically not paying tax. From 10,000 euros to 27, it's a progressive rate, basically like in the US. And you're going to see the difference between 2021 and 2022, where there is this willingness from the French government to reduce the tax in France. Now I'm going to discuss. I'm going to close with one important regime, which is very known from foreign investors in France, which is the LMNP regime. If you buy a place and you get it furnished, you may be allowed to use this regime, which is very interesting because it's allow you to deduct first all your expenses, but also to depreciate the property. And you can carry on the loss for 10 years. So basically, when you buy a property in Paris and you do Airbnb and stuff like that, usually it's furnished. Yeah, it's obviously furnished. So you can use that regime. And you basically won't pay tax in France. And it's very important to be aware of that tax regime because this is a way for you to not pay tax in France because of the depreciation and because of the expenses. And you can having the opportunity to own a place in Paris without paying tax, basically. So I don't want to go too into details. I will be happy to answer some question on that regime because I know it's going too into details, it's being too boring. But just to let you know that if you have in mind to buy an apartment in Paris, think about that regime. There is also a different regime that you can think of. You can go to the SCI, you can go to regime réel. There is, I don't want to go into that all details, but there is a lot of opportunity to save your tax and to optimize your tax situation in France while being outside France. That's it for my presentation. I will be happy to answer any question Q&A after this session.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. In order to buy an apartment, if you live in the United States, if you want to buy an apartment in France, of course, you're going to have to transfer money internationally. You're going to have to wire a large amount of money. So based on that, currency rate is so important. It's not like you are exchanging some money for your vacation. We are talking about large amounts. Kelly, you are the expert on that field. You work with the MoneyCorp. Tell us a few words about the company, about what you do at MoneyCorp, and how we can optimize that change of currency.
Thank you so much, Frankie. I'd be delighted to, and thank you so much for having me. As Frankie mentioned, my name is kelly.cutchin, and I am the country manager for MoneyCorp here in the United States. I have been with MoneyCorp now going on 17 years, and things have changed dramatically over those 16, 17 years. I'd say when I first joined MoneyCorp, we were working predominantly with a lot of British and Canadian clients that were purchasing second homes here in Florida. I'm based out of Orlando, Florida. And boy, have the trends and the tables turned to now we're working predominantly with a lot of Americans that are looking to invest or purchase in Europe, French being, of course, one of those prime choices. So I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation here and get started. Perfect. So MoneyCorp is actually a UK-based company, but we do have offices around the world. As I mentioned, I'm based out of our Orlando, Florida office. See here, we started trading in foreign exchange in the late 70s. We are highly regulated. I say that there's oftentimes not an industry that is as regulated as much as foreign currency exchange as you can imagine. So it's good to know that you're working with a company that is licensed, regulated, and monitored very closely on their transactions for its customers. Last year, we did trade over $51.9 billion in currencies in over 120 different currency pairs. Funnily enough, if you ask most people to name some currencies around the world, typically you get to about 5, and people can't really mention many more. They know the British pound, they know the US dollar, they know the euro, and then they get a bit stumped. So to think that MoneyCorp did over 120 different currency pairs is quite a substantial number. Our customers have great things to say about us, and it is important for you to always do your due diligence. You're not transferring money, as Frankie said, for a vacation and a couple $100. Whether you're purchasing a property for cash or financing, you are going to be transferring a considerable amount of money. So it is important, as always, to make sure that you're using experts. As I mentioned, we do have offices around the globe, but really it does not matter where you are or what currency that you're looking to transact. Everything that you do with MoneyCorp can be done over the phone or online. But as you can see, we have a very large presence here in North America. Our services are easy. I think that's one of the key things to consider. It isn't complicated. We understand that if this is your first time doing a transaction like this, or your first time buying an overseas property, there are a lot of complex things to think about, which is great to have people like Benjamin and Mahsa helping you through. So we try to simplify the currency exchange and transfer element for you as much as possible. Again, introducing you to a personal currency exchange dealer who can walk you through the process, allowing you to exchange currencies online, and providing you with some really tangible, detailed information that can help you determine the best time to facilitate these transactions. And I'll go into a bit more detail about that here in just a minute. I would suggest visiting our website. We do have overseas property guides and other tools and resources for you as you are in the research phase of making this type of investment. Information is knowledge. So again, feel free to visit our website and read up on some of the blogs and articles that we have published there. In this presentation specifically, obviously, we're talking about buying a property in Paris, but I did want to briefly mention that MoneyCorp services can be used for all types of transactions. If there is a currency exchange and international payment need, whether for a personal or private individual, or even for your business, for corporations, MoneyCorp does have services to facilitate those types of transactions. So again, just putting a few of those out here: medical payments, receiving inheritance from overseas family, paying for a wedding, right? Destination weddings, but of course, buying a property or sending children to study abroad, all types of things relating to international payments MoneyCorp can assist with. So I'm going to jump into now why you would choose to use a currency exchange broker versus going through the bank, because oftentimes when we start talking about this topic, people will say, well, why would I use a company like MoneyCorp? I've banked with Bank of America, Wells Fargo, whoever you bank with for decades. And here is why. Banks, of course, are necessary, right? We may need a checking, a savings account. We may need a credit card issued by our bank. But what they don't tend to specialize in is actually currency exchange. It's not uncommon, actually, if you were to contact your bank to even ask the simple question of what's the exchange rate, for them not to be able to give you a straight answer. Oftentimes, they may have to phone their head office in New York headquarters in order to even get an exchange rate quote to subsequently pass along to you. So again, it's not something that the staff is well trained on, and certainly not something that the US banks are dealing with on a regular basis. So you want to make sure that you're speaking to someone that knows and understands the process that you need to go through. Banks do charge international wire fees. This fee is nominal, right? Banks charge anywhere from between $25 and maybe $75 in order to do an international transfer, which may not seem relevant in the grand scheme of things. However, that is the transparent fee. There is actually a behind the scenes fee that is much more substantial and much more important for you to consider. That is the margin, the actual margin on the exchange rate itself. That's the big profit maker for the bank right there. But again, not a fee that you will necessarily be made aware of. When you do a transfer through the bank, you just need to take the exchange rate on that day, at that moment in time when you do a transaction. So there is very little guidance or monitoring of the exchange rate. You take it or leave it at that moment in time when you need to do any type of transaction. With MoneyCorp, we have local client accounts, which means that you will never make an international transfer, right? So the US dollars would come from your US bank and into the MoneyCorp client safe account here in America, negating the international wire fee from your bank, because again, it's just a domestic transfer. Once your dollars arrive into the client safe account at MoneyCorp, we'd facilitate the exchange to euros and make those international payments on your behalf. And there are no fees associated with our services. We offer extremely competitive rates of exchange, and I'll show you a detailed example of that in just a couple moments. You will be introduced to a personal currency exchange specialist. Again, we realize that this is a important and big transaction in every person's lives. And we want to make sure that you are able to pick up the phone and get expert guidance throughout this transaction from start to finish. And we actually have the ability to monitor the exchange rate. We want to help you get the best possible exchange rate within the time frame that you're working with, right? So we can, again, monitor the rates and help you to make a choice determining the best time to actually convert your US dollars into euros, effectively helping you to make sure that you get the most bang for your buck. How it works, there's a simple account opening process. I'd be happy to share that link with you if you wanted to proceed with that. But you could set up an account with MoneyCorp in a matter of minutes. Again, immediately you'll get a telephone call from your currency exchange dealer. So I would encourage people, even if you're in the early stages, go through the process, have that preliminary discussion with your currency dealer. We can at least tell you what the rate is right now to help you budget for that property as you go on with your search. And again, we can start monitoring the rates. No one has a crystal ball, right? And while there is data that comes out to help us make great anticipations on where the exchange rate is going, there are unpredictable things that could happen throughout your journey that could cause the exchange rate to fluctuate positively or negatively for you. And by having this account in place, it'll help us to take advantage of adverse currency exchange fluctuations for you, or again, protect you if we start to see the market move against you throughout this process. All right, so these are sort of fun. So let's take Jane. Jane is an American who is looking to buy a property in France, and the property that she's looking at is 500,000 euros. I took this exchange rate on February 27th. At this moment in time, if Jane picked up the phone and contacted her American bank, her US bank was going to give her an exchange rate of 0.9127. So for $1 American, she was going to get 0.9127 euros, which means that €500,000 property was going to cost Jane 547,825 euros, right? So again, bank's making a pretty substantial profit there, but Jane only thinks the bank is going to charge her $50 for that international transfer fee. At the exact same moment in time, if Jane were to contact a currency broker like MoneyCorp, we would have been able to offer her an exchange rate of 0.94, which means that same property, same moment in time, the property would cost her 531,000, which means she was able to maintain $15,911. So this isn't a small savings, it's absolutely a substantial savings. Oftentimes the savings that you can incur are enough to cover closing costs. They're enough to purchase furniture packages. They're enough to pay for your flights several times back and forth as you go to visit your property. So it's very, very, very important that you do shop around to make sure that you're getting the most competitive rate of exchange anytime you are converting currency. All right, so now we're going to talk about Jane again. And Jane is buying a property in this example for 250,000 euros. And I'll just click through here real quick, because what I want to demonstrate is that exchange rates fluctuate constantly, right? In September of 2022, we saw the exchange rate at par, at parity. November, we dropped to about 0.98, December 0.93, today 0.94, right? We have the ability to lock into an exchange rate for up to 2 years. This means that if Jane was working with us in September of last year and she knew she was going to be purchasing a property before the end of the year, we would have potentially discussed with Jane the possibility of locking into the exchange rate. And this way we would eliminate the risk of the exchange rate moving against her between September and December, which certainly happened had she waited until December to actually facilitate that conversion. So do consider that exchange rates fluctuate. In this chart here, you'll see that the overall trend is certainly on a decreasing value here. However, there's constantly throughout every single day, slight movements up and down. So we want to help make sure that you not only convert your currency in the right month, but on the right day and the right hour, helping you get the most bang for your buck, as I mentioned. This is something that's really important to me. I honestly feel like if you've blocked out all of the other part of my presentation, hone into this part right here, because I do feel that it's very important. There's something in the United States called the United States Patriot Act, which actually states that you are unable to facilitate an international wire transfer without being physically present in your bank. So what we don't want you to do is get really excited and jump on a plane and fly to Paris and find the property of your dreams, and then contact your bank back in the US to make an initial deposit, because the bank will likely tell you, we will not send your money until you fly back to the US and come into the branch to sign a piece of paper. So what you want to do is just be proactive, make sure that you either pre-fund an account like MoneyCorp so that you have those euros on hand so that we can release them should you be in Paris and find the property and need to make a deposit. But again, the banks are not easy to work with when it comes to making substantial transfers without being physically present. So don't pack up your things and leave America and leave money in your American bank, because there's a good chance those funds will be stuck there until you come back. So reach out to us and we can talk in more detail about that. But you certainly want to make sure that you have accommodations set up to facilitate transactions even without being here in the country. People often ask me what impacts the exchange rate. It's actually an easier question if you asked what doesn't impact the exchange rate, because there's all types of things that have an impact on the value of a currency, including political, climate, economic data, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the key things that happened over the last few years that caused the value of the exchange rates to fluctuate so dramatically. Right? 2020, we had Brexit, we had a presidential election, we had global economies all sort of suffering, and the US dollar is always seen as a safe haven currency. So with that, we saw a lot of people putting funds into the US dollar, which are buying US dollars, which caused the dollar to increase in value. 2021, you started to see some global economies stabilize, and we started to see the return of international investors coming back into the US, which again caused that dollar to strengthen. And then, of course, moving forward to 2022, we've had the Russia-Ukraine war, global inflation, the issues around the gas supplies, again causing the US dollar to strengthen. But with all of that said, that's why we've really seen this increased trend of Americans buying abroad. Why? Because a lot of us are sat on real estate prices that have increased in value, plus our dollar has strengthened. So it's really made the euro and countries like France a little bit on sale for us. So still a great time to buy. I did want to just leave you with my contact information. If you had questions, that telephone number there is my cell phone number. You can call or text me at any time, send me an email. There is absolutely no cost or obligation to establish an account with MoneyCorp. We'd love to get you to speak to a currency expert, even if you're at the very early stages of potentially purchasing internationally. We would certainly love to talk to you about locking into the exchange rate to eliminate that risk, as I discussed earlier, but certainly hopeful to answer any questions that you have today. And again, we're really grateful that you've joined us and hope that you found the presenters and the presentations today useful. So thanks for having me, Frankie.
Thank you, Kelly. And it's so powerful to see the three of you together in each field and expertise, because it comes to it's an educated decision. All buying an apartment in Paris can a true it's important to do your due diligence, the experienced professionals who can guide you through the process. It's interesting to see also that, of course, there is a cost associated with each service that you provide. To see the cost benefit on working with an expert. We're going to see that with Benjamin in a few minutes, since we have questions about the LMNP to understand how much you can save on tax by hiring an expert. Same thing with the exchange rate. We have questions about high margins. But before that, in the order that we proceeded, I wanted to ask you, Mahsa, first, there is Jessie Rhines, who's writing a very nice question. When I visit Paris, can you show me flats? That's what she asked. And of course, I know we know the answer.
Yes, of course, we can show you apartments. You can make the visit with our home hunters and in any district in Paris. And yes, of course, if you let us know what you want exactly and what's your budget before you're coming in Paris, we can make you a list. And like the movie in Netflix, Emily in Paris, we can take you everywhere at Paris.
I want to meet Emily. Can you arrange that?
Also, we can arrange everything.
Thank you. I hope my wife is not watching this webinar. Mahsa, I want to ask you a question. I want to ask you a question about give us like a feel of what what's the status of the market in Paris right now? Is it how is it reacting to the social movement, the economy? Is it a good time to buy? And can you give us facts about that? And in a way, I wanted our viewers to get a feel of Paris, even if they are not in Paris. Sell us Paris, the city of lights.
Okay, it works. For living there and to having a pied-à-terre, if you're not here and you want to rent it, a tenant, it's very easy to find in Paris. You put it on internet, and in 10 minutes, your phone gonna call, and everyone want to live inside. So it's very easy to find someone. It's very easy to find a tenant here. One and two, everybody know how is to live in Paris and in the best area also. You can find, and I know the type of American people want type of apartment because we work with them. Haussmannian, the style Haussmannian with the parquet, with the charm that in Paris we can have. We can do this, and there are a lot of apartments. The only thing is that in Paris, everything go very fast. So if you want a small apartment, like a studio or 2 pieces, it goes very quickly, and the price didn't really change with the price, with the economy problem. It didn't change. So the price are very high for the small mid-quarters. But for the big flats, like 80 mid-quarters or more, we can negotiate more because people who sell it go in other country or need money. That's why they sell it. In this type of apartment, we can negotiate more because there's not a lot of people who can buy here in Paris this type of apartment because the price are very higher. And so everybody in Paris go in the first area or the second, like 92, 93 or 94, because they can buy biggest apartment. So if you want some opportunity and to be interesting, it's in the big flat that you can find it. And there's something that we do a lot is in French, we say découpe or division. I think it's the same in English, division. We can say division or cutting an apartment in 2 apartments. Like something like that. So we buy, yeah. And this type of project, we do it a lot, and people who invest with us like this because we made the division. There's two tenants, like 5-6 years or 10 years sometimes. And when you come back here and you're gonna really live here, you can make it. You can make the division once again.
Mm-hmm. And do you have often the case of people who are, for example, let's say that there are American people who love France, well, basically the audience of Frenchly, which is American Francophiles, and some of them are planning maybe to retire in France at some point of time. So they can decide now to buy a piece of real estate in Paris, rent that place to cover the mortgage in order to be able to live there after a few years. Do you have that option on many cases?
Yes, and this one is the more option from foreign people who invest here. It's really for retirement, and that's why I'm talking about division, because the only thing that they want big apartment, not small apartment. So to rent it easily, it's easier to rent and to find tenants in small apartment to big one. Okay, that's why division it may be the best way to do it in France, because like we buy something 80 mid-quarters, we cut it in 2 apartments, 40 and 40 meters, okay? And we've got 2 tenants, like 10 years, and it's gonna pay the mortgage, it's gonna pay everything. And when you come back, it's ready. You take the keys and you've got the big apartment just for you. And more than half is paid by the tenant and not you.
Interesting. One last thing very quickly, because you mentioned to get a loan in a French bank, you need to have a long-term work contract, basically what we call in the US the W-2. Yes. The thing is, do they go into the detail of seeing how much you're going to have to pay every month and see like it's like a third of your overall income? What is basically the way French banks work in order to grant a loan?
They're going to ask you a business plan, and that's what we're going to give you. You're going to have all the cost of the project and how many rentals you're going to have from it. And the bank going to tell you exactly how much you're going to pay the interest, how much can you pay, are you going to pay the loan, everything, and with the down payment also. So you've got a simulation in French. And before saying anything or buying anything, you've got all this information. So it may help you to say, okay, we're going to go ahead, or no, we're going to search another one.
I see. Last question for you, Mahsa, from Tim Buckley. He said, if we use someone like you to look at multiple listings, do we incur an extra buyer's agent fee as opposed to going directly with the listing agent?
The thing that when you work with us, you're not going to find the thing that you find in the other agency, because we work only on off market. Okay. First, and secondly, when you work with us, the way we're going to negotiate for you and the money that you're going to win at the negotiation, that's why it's interesting to work with us. It's not just only to show you apartment, it's show you apartment who are off market, and show you also a thing that you didn't find this type of prices that we can find for you. Because we've got home hunters who work all day and who know, I don't know, qui savent, comment on dit qui savent?
Who know
every people in the market and who can find you the best price.
I see. Question from Jacques Delvoye. He says that from experience, if you're not a French resident and if you are retired, it's complicated to get a loan, even with a very high down payment. Is there an option, and I don't know who's going to answer that question, basically, is there a notion for the possibility for a US resident to get a loan from a US bank? It might be easier as well, no? Or is it something that can be done?
No, I've never seen, perhaps Benjamin, but they always take money from France.
From France, okay.
I think there used to be products like that many, many years ago, but those type of foreign national loans don't too much exist anymore. But you would want to speak to maybe an international mortgage specialist who can shop, or like a broker. So they're going to present you with 10 different options for mortgages. So if the gentleman asking wants a resource like that, feel free to send us an email, and I'm sure we all have mortgage broker contacts that we can share with you that are financing for Americans looking to purchase in Paris.
Thank you. Benjamin, can you educate us in a few minutes about high margin, how do you call it? LMNP regime? Because you mentioned that you can benefit from it and save a lot of money. How does it work?
So basically, you need to understand that you're paying tax only on income. You're not paying tax on losses. If you're not making money, you're not paying tax. So the idea of LMNP is a specialized tax regime where you're going to show to the French tax authority you are going to create a loss on your rental income by taking a depreciation on your property. Each year you're increasing the expenses of your property, and therefore you're creating a loss. So even if you having a rental income you have some expense like you have some interest on the bank, you have some expenses like cleaning, repair, and maintenance. But by adding the depreciation of the property, you're going to increase the loss, and therefore you're not going to pay tax. And the good thing is that the loss is you can carrying over the loss 10 years. So even if you create a loss for the first 10 years, you're going to have a massive loss that you can carry over the time, and therefore you won't pay tax in France. There is one, let's say, a pain point on the LMNP, because there is always a bad side on everything. Basically, you just need to have like a commercial activity on your LMNP, which means you need to have a bookkeeper, you need to have a financial statements, a balance sheet, and P&L. You need to every year doing some additional tax returns. So there is a cost of obviously associated to that. But
you do that?
at the end of the day,
you do that? You provide that kind of
yes.
services?
Yeah, definitely, yes. We are helping on the incorporation side of the business and also on the personal tax returns. So there is a specific accounting forms which is called the Form 2031. And beside that, we also need to report that loss on your personal tax returns. So there is basically two returns to do, one at your personal level and one for the property itself. And I guess by doing so, you just maybe it's an administrative complexity that there is an administrative burden of doing so, but you're just not going to pay tax on that. And if you don't do that, you will be on the regime réel, which means that you're just going to provide all the rental income minus the expenses. And obviously, if your rental income is higher than your expenses, you're going to have a profit, and you will be taxed on your profit.
Interesting. One more question. Dan Nguyen asked us, Benjamin, why about HOA fee for apartments? HOA means, if I'm correct, homeowner association fee. Is there an equivalent in France?
So there is the syndic. There is the cost of the syndic, which is the people who are going to manage your property or the building where you have your apartments. But maybe Mahsa, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is not as expensive as you guys imagine in the US. I mean, usually the frais de syndic on your property are not very high. Just if I can give you an example on the property I know well for one of my clients in the 16th district, which is one of the wealthiest area in Paris. And he owns an apartment of around 70 square meter, Haussmanien, like very nice places. I think the frais de syndic were about 2,000 euros every year.
Yes, about 200 or 400 more, not more. It's not a lot of expensive.
Benjamin, in 60 seconds, I'm sorry, we're running out of time, and a couple of questions to Kelly. But can you, in 60 seconds, Jennifer Morak is asking, if our daughter relocates to Paris, can we that and rent it to her? Or Mahsa or Benjamin?
Yes, of course, it's not a problem.
But does that present a tax advantage?
No.
If no, there is no specific tax advantage. I mean, she's just going to live there for free. I mean, or she's going to pay a rent. It's going to be a rental income as an external tenant of the property. So if you just live there for free, there will no trigger a tax event.
I see. Kelly, high margins. It was very clear in the presentation, but people want to hear more details about high margins on exchange rate. At the same time, how does a currency broker identify the perfect timing to convert for its clients?
Sure. So first on the high margins, I'll give a little currency exchange 101. There's something known as the interbank rate of exchange. That's the exchange rate that big banks are buying and selling millions of dollars of currency at any moment in time. If you Google the exchange rate or look on Bloomberg, the rate of exchange that you see is going to be the interbank rate. It's not the rate that you or I or any clients would have access to. So what happens is the banks take that interbank rate and then they sell it to you at a markup, just like you would buy any other product out there on the market. There's always going to be a markup. US banks are actually known as the banks that take the biggest margins on currency conversions, right? So Canadian clients, their banks aren't as bad. The Canadian bank margins are typically around 2%. So they tack on a margin of 2% above the interbank rate of exchange. European banks, typically around 3, maybe 4%. However, here in the United States, it's not uncommon for an American bank to take a margin of anywhere from around 5 to even around 10%. So hands down, US banks, don't use them to exchange currency. They are taking the largest margins of any country around the world. MoneyCorp typically works off of a less than 1% spread. So when you see the interbank rate of exchange, you'll know that by using a currency broker, we're going to get you much closer to the true rate of exchange. So people always ask, how does MoneyCorp make their profit? Very transparently, we make our money exactly the same way as the banks. We just choose to make a lot less. But this is our specialty. And by trading $60 billion in currencies per year, we don't need to take a 10% margin in order to remain a profitable organization where our clients are still seeing the benefits. The second question
Currency
was
exchange 101 in 60, let's say 90 seconds.
perfect. So just the other part was, how do we determine the best part? There's
Absolutely.
there's
The
a lot of
perfect timing.
Yeah, there's a lot of information that we know is coming out, right? We may know when there's a presidential election. We may know when a country is looking to increase interest rates. All of those things we know from history, how they impact an exchange rate. So we make sure that our clients are aware of those types of global events that are coming up and how historically they have impacted the value of the exchange rate. Of course, as I mentioned, a lot of things are not always predictable like that. So what we'd like to do is help you to target a specific rate, right? So if we tell you the rate today is 0.94 and you say, I'd really love it if the rate got to 0.97. If that were to happen, I would be ready to go. That would excite me. Then you go on sleeping better at night. We will monitor the rate for 0.97. And if it becomes available, we will proactively reach out to you and determine at that point, do you want to now look for 0.99 or do you want to go ahead with this transaction by either locking into the rate or going ahead and purchasing those euros so that they're at your disposal to use as the plans progress.
Right on the dot, 90 seconds. She did it in 90 seconds. You know what? Only Americans can do that. Thank you so much, Kelly, Benjamin,
My pleasure.
Mahsa. It has been wonderful to have the three of you with each field of expertise, because we need all these type of expertise when we want to buy a piece of real estate in France. Thank you for being with us. You can subscribe to our newsletter on frenchly.us if it's not the case already. And if you can, we can go on the link, that website also to have the, can we see the contacts of each of you before we stop this webinar? If you can share the last page of your at the same time.
Too hard for me, guys. I cannot do it.
I'll put mine up. Maybe you can take a picture of it and then I'll take it down.
Actually, yes. I invite you all to take your phone out and take a picture or a screenshot of that contact information of Kelly. And in the meantime, Mahsa is getting ready and Benjamin is going to share his page. Thank you so much. All right. So you were writing emails during the webinar. You were writing emails during the webinar. This guy works non-stop.
I'm not.
No, I'm just kidding. If we want to reach you, Benjamin, how do we do that?
Just let me share my screen. That's it.
Perfect. Benjamin, you have the email address here and the cell phone, because these guys can be reached 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, maybe 6 days a week, Benjamin, right? And Mahsa?
And me, just a second, here. You've got You see?
Wow. It took you a little bit more time, but you're the only one with the QR code. So you see, in order to contact the team of
You can take
Investissement,
just here.
Locatif, you can take the picture also of the QR code and the phone number. Thank you very much for being with us. And we hope to see you soon again on different topics. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.